and the President of the Republic of Paraguay, His Excellency Peña Palacios.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. First and foremost, I want to thank our honored guest, President Santiago Peña Palacios, and of course his family and colleagues who are with us here today.
También a su familia y a sus colegas que están hoy acompañándonos. Estamos encantados de tenerte de vuelta. Este evento está copatrocinado por el Instituto de Estudios Latinoamericanos y la Escuela Internacional de Asuntos Públicos.
The last of the World Leaders Forum associated with the UN General Assembly. In all, this week we've welcomed leaders from the Dominican Republic, the European Parliament, Romania, and more.
Hemos dado la bienvenida a líderes de todo el mundo.
And answered probing questions from our students about the most urgent global issues of the moment. It's been especially gratifying for me, as at the start of my term as President of Colombia, to join in these discussions and debates. Some of you may know
Es un placer para mí ser parte de este tipo de eventos y debates.
It's great for me to re-engage with these issues and to feel that Colombia is at the center of world affairs. But most of all, it's been a pleasure to watch and listen to the thoughtfulness and rigor with which our students engage with these world leaders. I have been incredibly impressed at the quality of the questions.
Estoy muy impresionada por la calidad de las preguntas que se han realizado por parte de los estudiantes.
And today's event is an outstanding example of that. The president, of course, was a student here at Columbia.
El presidente ha sido un alumno aquí en Colombia y ahora está liderando su país. Su conversación va a inspirar a muchos estudiantes que están aquí presentes. Bienvenido de nuevo, presidente Santiago Palacio Peña.
After working at the Central Bank of Paraguay between 2000 and 2009, President Peña went on to serve in the African Department of the International Monetary Fund, where we coincided when I was there as Deputy Managing Director. In addition to that, he was also a member of the Directory of the Central Bank of Paraguay.
Fue miembro del directorio del Banco Central de Paraguay. También fue ministro de Hacienda en Paraguay. Inició su mandato el mes pasado en agosto. Es parte del Partido Colorado en su país. El presidente Peña está asumiendo en un periodo complicado. Está enfocado en crear fuentes de trabajo. Y hoy nos va a acompañar para hablar sobre Paraguay, el despertar de un gigante. Démosle la bienvenida.
Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be back here.
Es un placer estar aquí de nuevo. Gracias por permitirme participar y de compartir mi propia experiencia aquí en la Universidad Columbia. Estoy muy honrado de compartir con ustedes. Me siento identificado porque yo también fui un estudiante.
a leader in my own community, in my own neighborhood.
Y la motivación de ser un líder en mi comunidad y en mi país. Nunca me había visto siendo un político, incluso un presidente de Paraguay.
At the age of 17, I got the information from my girlfriend at that time that we were going to be fathers. 17 years old, I was
Cuando tenía 17 años, me enteré de que iba a ser padre.
I had a conversation with my father and I said, you know, Dad, I will be a father.
Tuve una conversación con mi padre informándole que iba a ser padre.
He's still living. He's 80 years old. He's very healthy. But the day that I leave, I'm not going to inherit you a property, land, or a company. The only thing that you're going to inherit is your education.
En conversación con mi padre, lo que me dijo fue que no heredaría bienes, sino más bien educación.
I started to pay a lot of attention to education. So I went to study economics in Paraguay, and my
Estudié economía en Paraguay
my bachelor degree so I can continue
y tenía como meta terminar mis cursos de grado para hacer un posgrado.
I finished my undergrad studies, and I presented my thesis on a Friday, and I was
Presenté mi tesis un viernes.
The following Monday.
Y el siguiente lunes yo ya tenía que empezar mi maestría en Colombia. La experiencia impactó mucho en mi personalidad y mi perspectiva sobre el mundo. Mi esposa me dijo que fue un Santiago que se fue a Colombia y fue otro Santiago el que volvió de Colombia.
That is gathered in this university was just amazing. I have two of my classmates from that time.
Tengo a dos de mis compañeros de la época que están aquí presentes. Si por favor pueden pararse. Hemos mantenido muy buenas relaciones. Venir acá desde Paraguay, un país isolado.
So all this was, I can assure you, was overwhelming, but it was transformational for me.
En la época todo había sido muy abrumador. Tenía la idea de que la academia puede resolver todos los problemas del mundo. Empecé a trabajar mucho en políticas públicas. Al trabajar en África me di cuenta del propio potencial de Paraguay. Me pregunté por qué Paraguay no es un país más desarrollado. Mi camino para llegar a la presidencia de Paraguay tuvo varios procesos. La academia y me convertí en el ministro de Economía más joven que tuvo el país. Promoví mejoras en la educación y en el gasto público. En un punto necesité hablar con los políticos. No hay secreto para el desarrollo. Hay que invertir en salud, educación, invitar al sector privado de colaborar con nosotros y que haya equidad en el acceso a las oportunidades.
Do you have any idea how hard we worked to be here? How many people do we have to
Un
convince?
parlamentario me preguntó cuántos votos tengo. Nosotros trabajamos muy duro para llegar hasta el Parlamento. Me dijo que vaya a la calle y hable con la gente y que así podría experimentar lo que es ser un político.
With a job or a position. This is something much bigger that is telling people how we're going to change a society. So I ran again. Last year I won the primaries.
El año pasado me volví a postular y pude ganar.
A lot of power that need to be combined with will. So
se tiene que combinar el poder con voluntad.
Paraguay was in 1850 the most advanced economy in Latin America.
Paraguay en el siglo XIX fue una potencia mundial. Tenía su propio tren, erradicó el analfabetismo, pero ese camino de desarrollo paró en un tiempo porque fuimos a la guerra. 3 países fueron en contra de Paraguay: Argentina, Brasil y Uruguay. Firmaron un tratado para eliminar al territorio Paraguay. Se llevaron gran parte del territorio y mataron gran parte de la población. During the late 1800s and the early 1900s, which is that massive flow of immigrants that came to Latin America. Paraguay did not experience. En un periodo de Paraguay se recibió una gran cantidad de inmigrantes.
So for many years, Paraguay has been in this slowly process of recovery.
Durante muchos años, Paraguay se vio difícil de superar ese periodo que pasó.
And 35 years of a blossom democracy over the last 35 years, which now allow us to compare what has done democracy on top of dictatorship, and the results are
Ahora podemos comparar qué hizo la dictadura frente a la democracia.
In any part of the world, but in the Western world, it is the norm. And we can prove that democracy is a much better system.
Podemos probar que la democracia es un sistema mucho mejor.
10 years ago, I came to New York as a member of the board of the central bank.
Hace 10 años vine a Nueva York como director del Banco Central del Paraguay.
We became the last country in South America to issue bonds. And going around and doing this round of roadshow conversation with asset managers, one of them said to me, "You know, director, Paraguay doesn't exist." What do you mean doesn't exist?
Me dijeron, Paraguay no existe.
He typed Paraguay, press enter, and appeared not found. So Paraguay
me mostró que tipeó en un sistema y Paraguay no tenía ningún resultado.
Listening to Professor Jeffrey Sachs talking about Latin America, he didn't talk about Paraguay. He didn't know nothing about Paraguay. So what has had happening over the last 10, 15, 20 years?
Lo que pasó en los últimos 10 a 15 años es que Paraguay, nosotros los paraguayos, estamos haciendo un esfuerzo mayor.
Paraguay is, right? Because this country, when you look at the map, appears to be a small country.
Cuando ves en el mapa el país de Paraguay, se ve muy pequeñito, pero tenemos mucho potencial, muchos recursos, tenemos muchos ríos que nos permiten movilizarnos.
Mobilizing 80% of all the production that come out of Paraguay.
Contamos con muchas barcazas para movilizar importaciones y exportaciones. Paraguay tiene la hidroeléctrica más grande del mundo, que nos permite exportar energía limpia y renovable.
we're able to understand what has worked and what has not worked. Macro stability is fundamental. Our own currency, the guarani, this year is becoming 80 years old. 80 is the second oldest in Latin America after the Colombian peso. The region that has been nominated by monetary instability and fiscal stability, there is one island in the middle that is an oasis, macro stability, solid economic institutions. And now the challenge is to do, on top of these strong fundamentals, we need to add up more things. And what are those things that will allow Paraguay to continue to advance? Human capital, education, health, quality jobs, which is something that Paraguayans really value. So I think that the opportunity that we have on this later process of development, on this transition to a greener economy, on a society that today has much more information to what we had 100 years ago in terms of how we're gonna maintain the equilibrium between development and the environment, this will make Paraguay not only the most advanced economy, but a proof that we can have this ecosystem that is sustainable for everybody. So now I will be very happy to answer Vicky's questions, and of course, if the students have questions, I'm very happy to do it. Thank you very much.
Well, hello. It's really a pleasure to have you here, Santiago, and I can testify that Paraguay is a beautiful country because I have been there. But in the name of the Institute of Latin American Studies and SIPA, where you've obtained your degree and I teach, we are thrilled to have you coming back. Following up on your presentation, Paraguay has had several years of pretty strong growth and a strong recovery from the pandemic, but the growth had kind of slowed down in the last year. And the main sector of the economy is agriculture. And agriculture is deeply exposed to climate conditions. You face a recent drought. And the expansion of agriculture beyond where it is now has implications for deforestation and climate change. You also point to the decline in poverty, but still at a high level. And so what are the policies that you plan to follow? You've already been the finance minister, now you are the president with the two chambers, you have the votes. What is your agenda for a sustainable growth with regards to the climate and equitable to make it better for all Paraguayans?
A little bit, let me comment on some of the facts about Paraguay. GDP growth in the past was more volatile. In 2017, we updated the national accounts and we found that we had 30% of the economy that was not accounted. So when doing the revision, the growth was much less volatile. There were a lot of sectors that has been growing in recent years. Last year, Latin America suffered the worst drought in more than 50 years. And GDP growth in Paraguay was 0.2. We have a decline in agricultural output of more than 50%, and did not have the impact that in the past was having. And this is because over the recent years, and mostly in the last decade, there have been other sources of growth other than the agricultural output. The other thing is that in 2002, 20 years ago, Paraguay approved a law of zero deforestation in the southern part, the Región Oriental, the oriental region, which is where the agricultural output is produced. And I announced it last Friday, a research that has been done by the Institute of Forestation that prove with statistical evidence that 95% of all the soybean harvest is done on areas that had not been deforested. So this is throwing back a myth that has been going around for many years. Paraguay maintained 44% of the entire country with forests. 44, this is one of the largest numbers in the world. So climate change is having an impact, but Paraguay is not the one who is suffering. In fact, we produce food for 100 million people, and our total gas emissions are 0.09% of total gas emissions, feeding 100 million people in the world. And we have been reducing this over the last 14 years. And the reason is very simple. Because we are in a later stage of development and agricultural production only came 30 years ago, the way it's been done is taking into consideration technology that was not available when Argentina, Uruguay, or Brazil began doing agriculture 100 years ago. So Paraguay has today 100% of the crop is what is called direct harvesting. What it means is that we have mapped all the soil and we put the seed and the fertilizer exactly in the place where it's needed. So there's no excess amount. And this is making so efficient the production on Paraguay compared to other parts of the world. So we take this very seriously and we are advancing on this environmental agenda. In fact, we are very close to have approval. We have already one of the chambers, the Senate approved it on Wednesday, one of the most advanced law on credit carbon. And this is the mechanism that will allow us to bridge what the world is needing to have this credit carbon to compensate to the gas emission that they are doing with Paraguay natural resources that for us is critical to have the resources to take care of those natural resources, right? So we're very close, and I'm planning to make a big announcement on the COP28, which is taking place in December in Dubai, and this probably is going to be a big change on the carbon credit market.
So let's go back, given you told the people about the history of Paraguay, which is totally exactly as you described with the effect of the war. So let's move to international relations. And you've started your administration last month with a speech that paid a lot of attention to international relations, including regional integration and reaffirming Paraguay's historic relationship with Taiwan. And in fact, I think two of the most immediate issues in the international agenda seem to be related to those who fought the war, right? Who are also your largest neighbors and the largest partners of Paraguay in Mercosur. So you have in front of you the renegotiation of the Itaipu agreement, including the terms of Brazil's use of most of the Itaipu energy at a very subsidized price. So you're subsidizing the development of Brazil. And also, in front of you, you have a dispute over the use of the Paraná River with Argentina, which is the main way for Paraguay to send their exports to the ocean, because it's a landlocked country. So how do you plan to address the relationship with both Brazil and Argentina, and how will you see this affecting Mercosur?
Yeah, first of all, and I think I'm sure that many of the people here will be surprised about Paraguay being one of the 12 countries that still recognize Taiwan. We have been friends of Taiwan for the last 66 years. But our decision to continue on this relation has absolutely nothing to do with history or nostalgic. This is based on pure economic view and development strategy for Paraguay. Paraguay, as you described, is very competitive on food production. But food by itself is not going to make it for Paraguay. Paraguay needs to develop certain capabilities based on knowledge, innovation, technology. And we think the alliance that we have with Taiwan, we have a Taiwanese university in Paraguay teaching students on engineers. They go to Taiwan, they work on Taiwanese companies. And we think that Paraguay's development is not going to be based on selling food or raw materials. The future of Paraguay is producing high technology based on knowledge. And this is something that we are working, and this is what explains our relation. We do trade with China, a lot of trade, like any other country, and they have a lot of investment in Paraguay because Paraguay is good on what they are doing, in particular in soybean production. So on the two things that you mentioned, Itaipu. Itaipu was signed 50 years ago. And this is a huge success of diplomacy because it solved limits between Brazil and Paraguay that were not solved after the war. So this took like almost 100 years after the war to two countries to sit together and say, where are the limitations between Brazil and you know, there is a doubt, so let's do a binational entity. So there was a treaty signed 50 years ago where they thought about building a dam, operating a dam, and paying the debt So over the last 50 years, this has happened. We built the largest hydroelectric, still today, the largest in the world. It's been operated, it's very, very efficient, and has been paid by full. So this is an asset that is worth, I don't know, probably $100 billion. This is more than Paraguay GDP per year, the size of Paraguay, which is half of it, $50 billion. And it generates a huge source of energy, but also resources, financial resources. So I said to the president of Brazil, which we have a great relation, I said, I feel so amazed to what Brazilians and Paraguayans did 50 years ago. The question I have now is, what is that we're going to do, Lula and Santiago, now that people in 50 years will feel amazed about ourselves? And I saw the blink on his eyes. So Itaipu is not only today a source of electricity, it's a source of development. So this is what we are discussing, and this is what I think we're going to have a lot of news. We're thinking about billions of dollars of new investment for a region that we know that is underinvested, that have resources, that have the people, that have the will, but we need to mobilize resources. On Argentina, the conflict is not about Paraguay and Argentina. The waterway, and this is one of the longest waterways in the world, 3,000 kilometers, includes Brazil, and the most productive land of Brazil, which is more landlocked than Paraguay, is on the waterway. We have Bolivia, and if you know, Bolivia has been pushing for years, decades, after the war with Chile to have access to the ocean, and in a litigation on the International Court in 2019, they lose that possibility. So the only way for them to go out to a river is through the waterway. And then Paraguay, that goes through the middle of our country, Uruguay and Argentina, right? So there is a treaty that governs the waterway. And Argentina took a decision early this year that they want to charge a toll. And the other 4 countries said, look, the toll is not illegal, but taking a unilateral decision is something that is not included in the treaty. So we are in this discussion with our friends of Argentina. I have to acknowledge the neighborhood has been tough, but you know, has been tough for over 5 centuries. So nothing new for us in that regard.
Thank you. So you were a student at SIPA, and I talked to many students who come to Colombia. This is a very global university, and they all come from different countries to learn, to expand their horizons, to get some international professional experience, but they all want to go back, or most of them want to go back to their home to make a difference. So given your experience, what is your advice for those students in terms of which lessons change your future path? What would you tell them?
Dream big is something that we hear all the time. Inauguration speech, you need to dream big. But I think dreaming big is amazing. I think, and I always say to people, we have great human capital everywhere. Every country has huge amount of people that they have goodwill, they have determination, but they decide to stay in the sidelines. And the world doesn't change if you stay in the sideline. You need to be in the middle of the field. And there are risks, of course. When you are playing in the field, you are hit. Sometimes you are hit hard. The ball moves very fast, and you don't have a lot of time to think about. But I think it's rewarding playing the game. This is what I decide. This is what I always aim. I wanted to be a player. I wanted to be in the game. I wanted to make things happen. So when I heard a lot of people complaining about politics and democracy is in crisis, in the Western world that we have domination of democracies, the political system, politics is in a crisis. And I think my view is not to blame on the bad people that use politics. I blame the good ones that don't get into politics, right? This is my history. I never thought myself as a politician. I thought myself of a dreamer, but want to make dreams make true. So the students are here at Columbia. You are having access to the top university in the world. This is the confluence not only of a very nice campus, very good teachers, but also a mixture of cultures coming all over the world, and this so much richness. So in going back, bring all that knowledge, all that experience, and make good things happen in your own countries.
Thank you. We are going to open now to questions of students, so please, you can line up behind the microphones on both sides. This event is recorded, so the questions will be public, and for attribution, you can identify yourself with your name and the name of your school. And I think to give the chance to more people to have a question, we might be bundling. Do you mind if we bundle the questions? No. So we might be bundling the questions. So let's start on the left, and please ask a question rather than making a statement.
Okay, hi, yes. So hi, thank you, President Palacios, first of all, for your time. My name is Valerie Reynoso. I graduated recently from Columbia SIPA, and right now I'm at New York Law School. So my question is, does Paraguay plan to join BRICS? And do you think that any Latin American countries will become closer to being economic superpowers in the future?
Thank you. One question there.
Hello, Mr. President. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to Columbia. My name is Alex. I am a senior studying economics and mathematics at GS. And my question is pretty simple. As you previously said, Paraguay wants to develop its hydroelectric industry, and that the Latin American region is like a very underinvested region. And your finance minister, Mr. Carlos Fernandez, said last month that Paraguay is potentially open to Chinese investments in the country. So I'm wondering if you are also open to Chinese investments in more projects in the future, and will your government be considering establishing diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China? Thank you.
Okay, one more question on this side, and then we'll get it back to the President.
Thank you very much, President Palacios, for your time today. My name is Vaughan. I am a first-year development practice student at SIPA. And I've had the chance to live in Brazil for the last decade. And I've noticed that the climate debate globally doesn't really include Latin American countries that are not Brazil. It's seen that Brazil is the Amazon, Brazil is the world's lungs, and there's no place for other Latin American countries in the global climate debate. So my question is, in what ways can other countries like Paraguay, Bolivia, Chile, Peru be more involved in the debate, inclusively? And what can the world take from the policies in these countries in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, which are due in 2030.
Okay, so back to you.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Valerie, on plans to join BRICS, there are no plans. There are plans to outreach market. Paraguay is the most open economy in Latin America. We are a small population, 6 million people. So our markets are outside. We are member of the IDB, CAF, FONPLATA, many international multilateral institutions. Paraguay doesn't have a problem of balance of payment. Paraguay doesn't have a problem of accessing financing, which is what the BRICS is being done. I mean, the BRICS is the joining of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and they want to put together so they can avoid the other multilateral institutions. We don't have that problem. We do like to participate in the conversation. Brazil is the president, they took the presidency of the G20, and I have asked President Lula to be part of, as a guest to all of these meetings, so I will be participating next year. I have no doubt that Latin America is the region of the world with the highest potential. If we think about the challenges for the future, food security, water access, and the youth that is emerging in Latin America, I have no doubt that we have absolutely everything to be the most dynamic region of the world. Alex asked about our willingness to open Paraguay market to Chinese investment. Yes, sure. They are already doing that. China is the largest supplier of goods to Paraguay and is the largest buyer of soybean of Paraguay. And there is one particular reason, has nothing to do with diplomacy. The soybean that Paraguay produces, for some reason that only Mother Nature can explain, has a higher caloric weight compared to the soybean that is produced in Brazil and Argentina. So they need the Paraguay soybean to mix it to other soybeans and improve the quality. So they buy it because it's a good product. And they are investing a lot in other sectors, in manufacture, and they want to benefit of this idea of nearshoring with Brazil. So I'm open to have diplomatic relations with POC. It's POC who has insisted that we break our relation with Taiwan, which for the moment we are not planning to do so. Bon asked about the climate debate, and you're right. I mean, Brazil is such a large country, it's 200 million people, so the debate always is dominated by Brazil. I mean, when you look at banks, international organizations, they have like a regional representative for Latin America, except Brazil. Brazil's always dominate, and it's similar to what happened in the U.S. I mean, U.S. discussion and politics is based on the U.S. So what is that we should do? Raise our hand, trying to have a louder voice and a stronger presence in the international debate. So this is more on us than asking the Brazilians to look around.
Thank you. So let's start on this side.
Thank you so much for your time today, Mr. President. My name is Annie, and I'm a freshman at Columbia College. So you mentioned the importance of human capital. I was wondering what specific plans or projects that you already have in progress for Paraguay to increase the human capital. Thank you.
Thank you. A question over here, please.
Thank you for coming, Mr. President. My name is Ron, and I am a junior in the School of General Studies. I was wondering, considering that food insecurity has become more of an issue now than ever due to the Russia-Ukraine war, how do you think Paraguay could serve as a role model and help alleviate some of the tensions and food insecurity problems that have dramatically risen since then?
Thank you. And Claudia, the last question.
Thank you so much. I'm Claudia. I'm a junior in Columbia College. And I have a question on, you just mentioned a future plan on implementing a carbon market in Paraguay. How will you avoid following Brazil's path of a lack of regulation that increased harassment to indigenous populations, which is already the population that has the lowest social indicators in Paraguay?
Okay, I think back to you.
Excellent. Annie, on human capital, what are the plans? A little bit of history here. We have this very long dictatorship for 35 years. And the dictatorship underinvested for 35 years on education. So the plan in the early 90s was the expansion of the public system, coverage. That was the domination on the discussion. And we did it. We covered every part of the world, of the country. And this is a very large country, but a population is relatively low, so it's very dispersed. So we went through and we built schools, we hired teachers, but the quality was very, very poor. Because the objective was not quality, the objective was quantity. So a couple of years ago, and this was over 10 years ago, we decided we need to evaluate Paraguay. So we went to the OECD, we asked them to evaluate Paraguay under the PISA, and for them, we started working on how to improve the quality of education. We restructured the centers for formation of teachers. We start working more on how to allow students to have a better quality education. And I did my part as Minister of Finance, launching the largest scholarship program on the history of Paraguay. So we put together resources from the budget, and we sent, over the last 10 years, close to 6,000 Paraguayans to do masters and PhD in the top 100 universities in the world. I didn't have that chance. I came to Colombia thanks to the Japanese, thanks to the Japan population, if one of them is here. So I came here thanks of a scholarship from Japan. So we launched this, and this is creating a massive impact because there are certain allocations of the scholarship program that goes to teachers. So we are sending teachers to Spain, France, the US also to teach on education. So this is something that is going to have a lot of results. So today we're working a lot on improving entry-level education and tertiary education. Ron asked on food security and how Paraguay can play a role during this conflict. There are two things. One, our moral obligation. We have a long relation with Russia. They are a very strong trading partner with Paraguay. We sell a lot of beef to Russia, but we cannot remain silent on this conflict because what is happening to Ukraine, the invasion of a larger country, is exactly what happened to us 160 years ago. Exactly the same. It was larger countries that wanted to invade a smaller country. So I raised this issue this week on my speech at the UN, and I raised this issue on my inaugural speech 30 days ago. So we will continue. The other thing is this conflict is putting on risk food security because Russia and Ukraine are the largest producer of fertilizer. So now we are understanding that if you combine electricity with water, you can create green fertilizer. So Paraguay is moving very, very fast on producing clean fertilizer thanks to the massive amount of electricity and water that we have. So there are several projects now, and this is like the early stage of hydrogen, green hydrogen. Before you do the electricity, the green hydrogen, you first do the fertilizer. So this is something that this will come. Paraguay will be also a powerhouse in hydrogen, but now we're going to produce clean fertilizers. And you mentioned the indigenous community. It is an issue. Paraguay has a relatively small indigenous community. 3% of the population belongs to indigenous people. The linkage of the Paraguay society with the indigenous community is very, very close. Paraguay is the only country in Latin America that have two official languages, the Spanish and Guarani, which is spoken by 98% of the population. So this is something that also maintains a cultural bond with the indigenous. But something that has been going on discussion for many, many years in Paraguay is the indigenous community, they have access to a lot of land. More than 2 million hectares belong to indigenous community. But, and this is something I would say is controversial, but organization has stated that indigenous community have to remain in their habitat, living the same way they were living 200 years ago. Right? What means? They need to be hunters-gatherers. And they are losing the opportunity of using their own land for production. They cannot work their land. And this is something that I think is very unfair. So we are advancing in having this broad discussion. How can we allow indigenous community in Paraguay to use their own land with technology and other sources of information that was not available 200 years ago when they were in fact hunter-gatherers. So I have one very nice anecdote visiting one indigenous community which is already doing this transition to using production. I said, look, my father, he's the cacique, he's the head of the tribe. So every morning we both go for hunting. He grabs his arrow and I get inside of the truck. So we are both hunting with different means. And I think this is something that we allow more development for this sector of the population, which is very important.
Thank you. Well, we do have a Paraguayan student, Regina.
Thank you so much for coming, Mr. President. I am Regina Blenda, a freshman at Columbia College, and my question concerns the Itaipu Treaty negotiations happening right now. Annex C has long sort of been a cause of concern for the Paraguayan government, in addition to the Paraguayan people who have been overcharged for electricity in some instances. What is Paraguay hoping for the renegotiation of Annex C, and will Paraguay achieve energy sovereignty in the future?
Okay, another question.
Hi, I'm Alicia Elias. I am Paraguayan, so I'm really happy to be here. I am in Teachers College doing a PhD in sociology and education. And my question is regarding education. What are the plans to reform? Like you mentioned, so many lacks and debts that we have towards our people regarding education. And specifically in this climate that was built around the Transformación Educativa project, which Columbia University was a partner for that project that couldn't get to see the light. So what are your plans to transform those things in our education system without facing the backlash of the conservative sectors?
Thank you. And the last question here.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excuse me. So my question is about the economic crisis in Argentina and the risk of spillover into Paraguay. Because right now, prices for consumer staples are falling in Argentina, so a lot of Paraguayans are crossing the border to buy them in Argentina, and so Paraguay is missing out on that consumer spending. Would that put pressure on you to open your market more to China? I was reading that you're under a lot of pressure from the beef and other agricultural lobbies to expand more trade because you're losing money by not trading with China. So in the short term, is that a risk to your Taiwan policy and to your economy? And in the long term, is there a way the U.S. can help you maintain that Taiwan policy? Thank you.
Thank you. So we
Yes.
get back.
All of these are very good questions.
We have very good students, as you very
I
well
love
know.
Regina, on Itaipu, and I touched this roughly because this is a policy decision that will have an impact for the next maybe 50, 100 years. So this is a major change. And for people who is not familiar, the question here is, Itaipu Treaty said that the cost of electricity is the combination of the cost of production, the cost of maintenance, and the debt service. And debt service was 60% of the tariff, right? So if we paid all the cost of electricity should go down, right? We own 50-50, but we don't use 50% of our electricity. So we sell to Brazil. So the decline in cost of electricity maximize the benefit for Brazil and minimize the benefit for Paraguay. If we increase the tariff, this allows Paraguay to maximize the benefit. So we are discussing this. So for this is that I mentioned, we need to think about what is the role of Itaipu. It is just generating electricity or is something else? And this is what I have mentioned. I think it's something else. It's generating electricity, and we need also to make it a source of development. So if we are able to capture the additional resources that were used for the debt service to invest or to bring future cash flow to today, we can make a huge impact not only on the economy, but also on social indicators. So this is what we are discussing. And on sovereignty, we are advancing very fast. We are now building the third line that is coming from Itaipu, allowing us to pull 100% of the electricity. We did this already with Argentina, and I don't know if you are familiar with, we have a little bit of a conflict also with Argentina on electricity because they were not paying for the electricity. So what we did, we started using our own electricity, right? So they were complaining about it. We couldn't do it in the past. And this was a recent investment that we did, and now we can use all, and we are interconnected, so the electricity that we don't sell to Brazil, to Argentina, we sell to Brazil, who in fact is paying. So we are a sovereign nation in the use of electricity. Alicia make a great question on education, and I'm part of this process of improving the transformation of education. Towards the end of the administration, I was Minister of Finance in 2017, and I was chairing a particular fund that was managing resources together with the private sector. It was public funds, but we brought together private sector representatives to monitor with us where were we investing. For example, the scholarship program. And I said to them, these resources are limited. And while we are doing some sort of programs, I think that we are not transforming the education. So we need to work on something that will be transformational. And I call Transformación Educativa. And I signed it as Minister of Finance, the document. And this started in the administration that came after. And the discussion went off track. And the agreement that I had with Teacher College just went nowhere. They decided to break it. It was poorly managed because they couldn't understand what was the objective, right? So this was part of a discussion during the campaign, the political campaign, because in the middle also enters the influence of other agendas, NGO, different organizations, and they couldn't handle. So at the end we said, let's put on hold, and we resume this once the government a new government is in place. So I'm leading now, and I said that I will be leading together with a group of people from the public and the private sector what will be the role of education in the future. So this is something that will not stop. The last person who didn't say his name, he talked about the economic crisis in Argentina, beef lobby, USA can help. definitely yes. We had been for years trying to regain access to the beef market in the US. They always said, we are almost there, we're almost there. So I think this is going to help a lot. For the next 5 years, we are not open to discuss breaking our relation with Taiwan. We are open to have more relation with China. There's absolutely no restrictions from our side. And because Argentina went through so many crises, at the end, we get used to this. So it comes as no surprise, the contagion effect every time it happens is lower. The greater impact that we have is smuggling. I mean, products that are sold in Argentina at one exchange rate, but enter into the Paraguayan market and another exchange rate, so this generate. So we are tightening the control on the borders, and of course it's not easy, people don't like, but this is generating a lot of good sales for formal stores.
So we have only 2 minutes, so we're going to get 2 more questions, please, very brief. So let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Melanie Russo. I'm a PhD in the School of Engineering working on fusion energy. Yo también soy paraguaya. Digo, mi mamá es de Asunción, entonces es un gran placer. Te quería preguntar sobre la cultura de Paraguay. What are your favorite parts about the culture of Paraguay, and maybe what are some things you would like to change on the cultural level?
Okay, Parker.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Parker de Cabral Vasquez. I'm a first year at Columbia College. A recent report from the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development touts Paraguay as a regional leader for sustainability, whereas regional neighbors like my home country of Argentina is lagging behind. How do you believe in a time where we're requiring to cooperate together with regional leaders that Paraguay can act as a global leader and a regional leader towards futures of sustainability?
Great, thank you. Melanie, I will try to understand, I will answer both. The cultural, when you think about the cultural thing, you're saying about the music, the food, the art, which is absolutely amazing. And this is something that we Paraguay needs to discover. So let me tell you what I did already. I put a Minister of Culture, which is an amazing woman. So on the inauguration as a president, the tradition goes that you have an event in the morning with all the people, you give a speech and all that. And in the evening, there is a dinner, a gala dinner. I said, I don't want a gala dinner. I want a cultural event, open for everybody. And we're gonna bring together all the artists from Paraguay, from different type of music. So we did this on the Costanera, which is an open space, and it was just amazing. Having different artists singing together, because that was the idea, is the mixture of all different type of music, was just amazing. And I'm absolutely sure, and this is something that my wife, Leticia, is advocating a lot, so she's working a lot on culture and many other things, but culture is something that she really enjoyed. We need to recover our self-esteem. The problem of Paraguay, which is also part of our culture, the problem of Paraguay is not being landlocked. The problem of Paraguay is that we are mind-locked. Because of our history, we look into the inside. A very famous writer, Augusto Roa Basto, he won the Cervantes Award. He described Paraguay as the island surrounded by land. And it has absolutely nothing to do with geography. It was mentality. And of course, a country that went through a war of extermination, they didn't want to go out. And we're talking about our great-grandparents. We're not talking about a generation, no, people that we met, they were raised under those times. So this is something that have a great impact, and we need to understand, because as more Paraguayans like yourself, Melanie, are coming here and are witnessing all the good things that knowledge can give you, and we don't need to get frustrated why Paraguay is not more advanced. We will get there. We're going to be, again, the most advanced economy and country in Latin America, because it's not only economic growth, it's cultural, it's social growth.
So maybe a brief answer, because we need to wrap up to...
And Boger was asking, how can we influence? I mean, and this is our job. This is what we have to do. It has absolutely nothing to do with the size of the population, the size of the economy. I want to be a champion of integration in Latin America. I truly believe in multilateralism. I mentioned to the Secretary General, everybody talks that the system is broken. I want to work in a better system. I don't want to complain. I don't want to be in the side saying, okay, the system doesn't work. Let's make the system work. And after the financial crisis in 2008, the pandemic also has generated a sentiment of nationalism, and it's taking a lot of leaders to look inside, and this is wrong. It was wrong in what took to the war, the First World War II, World War I, and it's wrong again. So those that are convinced, we need to have a louder voice, and I want to be a loud voice.
Thank you so much, President Peña, for a fantastic conversation, all the attention you pay to our students, and it's incredible to have you back here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.